Hi, and welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I would give you a quick review of a book that I have been eager to publish the review of, and that is The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. Now, this book just came out today. It was just released this morning, or I guess around 9 a.m. But I read it 5 months ago, so I have been, holding back the best way that I could to get this review published because I want people to read this book. Now, before I tell you about the book, which is The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna, and the cover will be up on the screen, I wanted to tell you my history with this fabulous author, Kristen Hanna. Now, I think she came up as a featured author in one of the challenge groups that I participate in monthly. And when I saw her name, I had never read any of her books. So I looked her up on Goodreads, and I do have my Goodreads page open to my left. And let me tell you, I found the first two books were Firefly Lane and Fly Away, which was a duology. So I read those, loved those, and was totally enamored by her writing. Then I read The Nightingale, and now that actually I'm thinking about it, I'm going to pop these covers up on the screen. The Nightingale was one of the most touching, impressionable books I've had the pleasure of reading. And I'm big on World War II historical fiction. That is one of my most read genres. My most read genre is more psychological thrillers or mystery thrillers. But historical fiction, especially World War II, has a very special place in my heart. And the thing about historical fiction during that time is the books are always very, very tragic. And so while it's one of my favorite genres, I limit myself to 2 to 4 books a month because of the emotional impact these books have on me. So that book that Kristen Hanna wrote for that time period was, as I mentioned, The Nightingale, and that cover is up, and it was about the invasion of the Nazi soldiers in France during 1939, during those years. Then the next book I read by Kristen Hanna was True Colors, which another fabulous, fabulous book. And then I read Summer Island and Winter Garden, again, fabulous books. And I also read The Great Alone. And I really loved The Great Alone because it was about a family who the husband and wife had been together for years, and they were happy, and they were living a normal small family life with 2 children. Well, the husband goes off to war, but when he came back from war, he was what we know today had PTSD, but back then they didn't have a name for it. So he started to have these kind of conspiracy type theories. So he decided to move his entire family to Alaska, and they had to make it through the most difficult challenges you could imagine living in the Great Alone, which at that time, that's what Alaska was pretty much referred to. So those were all the books that I read from Kristen Hanna during most of 2020. I still have other ones, like the next one I'm reading by her will be Night Road. Then at the end of the year, maybe I think around September, October, I was able to read, I'm just pulling it up to tell you when I read it. Yes, I read it September 2nd, so it's being released today in February. And that was The Four Winds, and that's what this book is about. Now, just like a previous book of hers, it took place in the late 30s, early 1940s, with World War II in France. This book takes place in the 1930s. So at this point in the review, I'm sticking the book cover on the screen. Well, this book takes place in the 1930s in the U.S. in the Depression. And it starts off in Texas, 1934, where not only are millions of people out of work because of the Depression, but the Dust Bowl had hit. And I actually had to research what the Dust Bowl was and how it destroyed millions of families in their lives because of the drought that was accompanied by this era that hit the Texas area during the Great Depression. So, sorry, the cat just hit the tripod. So now that this particular family lost everything due to the Depression and it's the Martinelli family, by the way, the Depression and the Dust Bowl, Elsa Martinelli, oh, my cat just won't stop hitting my tripod. Sorry, made things a little quicker. Elsa Martinelli takes her two daughters or two children and decides, okay, we have to leave. You know, we won't survive. We won't survive another winter. We won't have anything to eat. So she takes her children and she decides to head to California, which was supposed to be the land of opportunity. So from Texas to opportunity with two children. Now, when they finally get there, the first two things that they were hit with, well, the first thing they were hit with was prejudice. Prejudice because of being poor people coming from the Midwest to what was mostly unaffected by the Depression area as of California. So that was a big issue for them. Then they were also hit with inflation. And I found that to be very intriguing because what happened in that situation was, a lot of places at that time in history would give people credit. You would buy groceries and what you needed on store credit. So they gave the Martinelli family, or the mother, Elsa Martinelli, credit, but at an inflated rate. So instead of, say, paying 120% of the value of something, they had to pay 180 to 200% of something. So I thought that was very intriguing. Now, a little bit about Elsa. As a child, she almost succumbed to a serious illness that almost cost her life, and this had a long-term effect on her life. So because of what she experienced during that illness and that recovery, she never measured up to her sisters. So she had a problem in her immediate family with regarding her parents treating her as less than. Then, as a teenager, she became pregnant with her first child, so she was forced to marry this man, the child's father. Blessedly for her was that her in-laws, Rose and Tony, they welcomed her with open arms. They did not treat her the way she had been treated by her own family. So that was a blessing for her, and it gave her an opportunity to give something to her children. However, back to present time, the drought, the Depression, and the fact that her and her husband just could not make it. So she takes her children and she leaves, and they face all of these additional trials when they get to California. I found this book to be incredibly touching, incredibly touching. I'm not gonna lie. I bawled, I cried, ugly cried several times throughout the story. And all I want to say is, Kristen Hanna, whether she's writing about sisters or mothers and their adult daughters, or whether she's writing about Alaska, or whether she's writing about the war, or in this case about the Depression and how it affected this particular family, her books to me are always quite compelling. Always from page 1 to the last word, I am completely invested in her stories. I wanted to also touch on this. That time in history was very, very tragic for millions and millions of people. Well, it helped me to reflect on what's going on in the world today. We're living with the pandemic. It was uncertain times then, and it's still uncertain times now. So sometimes when you read books of this magnitude, it really helps you to reflect on your life, on what's important in your life, and on trying to control what you can, and trying to understand that there are some things that you cannot control, and you let those things go. So although I read this book halfway through the pandemic era of 2020, and now we're into the second month of February, I still feel the impact of this book helping me to cope with what's going on around me today. So again, as you see, the book cover has been on the screen for a few moments. It's Kristen Hanna's The Four Winds, released today by St. Martin's Press. I want to thank St. Martin's Press, Kristen Hanna, and NetGalley for this book for review. And this, the link for this book will be in the description below. And hopefully you'll take a look at it yourself. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.